They still couldn't hear me, so that was fine. I just sat there and blah, blah, blah,
Where
blah.
in England were you?
Actually, when then I was in the Lake District.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Vacation?
Yeah, well, my
Why
kids,
else would you go to the
well,
Lake
yeah,
District?
my oldest kid lives over there.
Oh, okay.
And they live outside of London though, but we always go over. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You getting John or not?
Did you just travel out? Who else do we have a quorum? Yes. One? Yeah, you have a quorum. 2, 3.
All right, so I guess let's get started.
5. We'll have to see Steve.
We're good? Good for a quorum? Okay, all right. All right. So it's 7:01. Let's call to order the Board of Finance meeting. Everybody pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so do we need to seat alternates? What's the kind of gig here?
Yeah.
Steve.
Me for John or Brian,
And,
either one. Oh, Brian's on. Who is that on?
Is anybody on?
Oh, that's Betsy.
That's Betsy. Betsy and,
Either one, me for Brian or me for John.
okay, so I guess you're sitting. Hey, Chuck. And we have sufficient Democratic, I guess, so 1, 2, is that all we, it's all we need is 4? Okay,
We're told.
all right, good, I'm glad somebody else is good with this stuff. All right, approval of the minutes. Has everybody read the minutes? Anybody have any comments or thoughts about the minutes? Any corrections? Dan, one thing, I had a question, and it's in the minutes, and we haven't really done it formally, although we sort of informally decided not to move the money, not to move any more money into the reserve fund.
Yep.
But in the minutes, it said 1.2 million. I thought there was a lot more.
That's the stability fund, Tom. That's after we true up the do from the capital account to the general fund.
Yeah,
It's
but
1.2.
I thought that there was a lot more money invested in STIF generally.
We have invested in STIF right now, $39 million.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Now, does that fluctuate with our needs? Like this in the, or does that just sit there?
And no, it just sits. Our strategy is every night, all of our funds sweep out to various banks all over the country to stay in
Right.
FDIC insured, and we earn STIF on that. So it's about, currently it's about $39 million, but as we need it, we have about a $5 million school payment this month, so after that's done, it reduces every month based upon what we need of it.
Well, I know, so it's a reserve fund, so, I don't want to invest anything that's moving in and out
Yep.
fast, but stuff that's just sitting there.
Well, there's two separate, Tom. We have the reserve portfolio, and then we have our cash, which is what's actually sitting in STIF, which is the general fund cash. So the
Right.
reserve portfolio has about, in cash right now, I forget the number, it's like $1.7 million, or somewhere around there. In not cash, but in money market.
Okay, yeah, well,
Short term.
Yeah, short term.
right, but I thought we were talking about investing the other 39 million or some segment of it.
We were talking about doing that, but when we looked at what we're allowed to invest by state statute,
Uh-huh.
we are fully invested in our non-recurring capital accounts, which is about $11.4 million. So unless we change the strategy from going from 90% to 100%, then we could invest more. But right now, we are 100% at that point,
Okay.
based upon what we're allowable by this board, 90% investment.
Okay, all right, great. Any other questions about the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Okay. Anybody from the public here that wants to make comments? Any public comments? Okay.
Excuse me. I'd like to add an item to the agenda,
Okay,
or propose adding an item to the agenda.
all right.
Last year at budget time, we put $20,000 into the budget for a benchmarking study of Southbury expenses and performance versus other towns of comparable size. I don't believe we've had any conversation on that topic since, and I'd like to have some discussion and move that forward.
Okay.
To the Board of Selectmen tonight.
Can we add that as an agenda item? Okay, any made second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, so we're going to add it under new business, sure. Okay,
Put it at the bottom.
so the next, so under new business, Mr. Riley has tendered his resignation to the Board of Finance. I think that's sort of as part of a kind of general swap around where he's going to be eventually, we hope, become an alternate, and I guess Steve or somebody's going to become a more permanent member. Mr. Riley's been on the Board of Finance for many, many years. We love that he's going to stay with us, but I think you want to, you want to express any of your thoughts about it?
No, just saying that the move was basically planned. I decided that after virtually 20 years here, taking up too much space, and with some younger and more up-to-date folks coming up, that I would not run for the regular seat. So I did not run for re-election. And since Steve was elected to that seat, my option is now I am resigning as of tomorrow. So he now, based on how they do that, can be moved into the voting seat because my resignation is effective tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, John. I mean, again, you're not going away, but you've done such great work for the Board of Finance. Everybody I know expresses our gratitude.
Still worth for a second of recognition.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the pension review. We have Jen Castellano here from our Milliman, who's our actuary. And so we do this once a year, and it's always fun and exciting. So why don't you get on with it?
All right, thank you. Good evening. So as usual, tonight I'll be going through the results of the annual pension valuation. The valuation was performed as of July 1st, 2025. You can go on to the next page. So a few years back, we broke out this presentation to separate out the non-police portion of the plan from the police portion of the plan, mainly because the non-police portion of the plan has been closed to new hires for quite some time now. And you can kind of see that on this page. On the top left-hand corner of the page is the member counts over the last 5 years, broken down into 3 categories. The first category being up the top of those bars, the darker kind of greenish color, are your terminated members. So these are people who have stopped working for the town but have not yet begun to collect a benefit. Next, the middle section, we represent the members and pay status. So these are people who are currently collecting a monthly benefit from the town. And then lastly, you have your active members. So these are active employees. You can see that last group has been declining over time because our new hires are not entering the plan. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see a distribution of these active members by age and service. And you can see each year the concentration keeps tending towards that bottom right-hand quadrant, meaning this group is getting older and having much longer years of service. About 6 of them are, over 55 with 30 plus years of service. So an aging population, a much shorter duration with respect to this population. The good news is this portion of liability is essentially 100% funded. So it's in a really good position. So you're right where you want to be for this portion of the liability.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
So Remind me again what terminated means?
Not working for the town. So they've terminated employment,
Yeah.
but
They're collecting,
they're not eligible for a benefit
No.
yet. They will be due a benefit in the future.
okay, that's why the liability in the future, okay. And so between 2024 and 2025, depending on how you count it, there's 6 or 7 or 6 less, right? So does that just mean those people are off the pension for some, did they die or they're off the pension?
So yeah, that light blue shaded section, there were some members in pay status who passed away during the last year, so they've
Right.
come off the,
Is there any other
liability.
reason why they would go off? Any other reason besides death that they would go off the
a
pension?
member in pay status would not go off for any other reason besides death. no.
Okay, all right, thanks.
On to the next page. This is a similar page, but this is for the police population. So the police population is still open to new hires. So as new police officers are hired, they are entering the pension plan. And you can see it, again, the graph up the top left-hand corner, that darker blue number has been fairly consistent around 20, between 20 to 22 people. I think there were some openings in the last several years which have since been filled. So the active membership has increased a bit since last valuation. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see the population is much younger with fewer years of service. The concentration is in the top left-hand quadrant as opposed to the bottom right quadrant for the town side. So lots of newer hires in recent years, younger people, so much longer time horizon for this plan. When you think about investing for the assets to fund this liability is a much longer duration for this portion of the liability. So moving on to the next page, we're looking at the assets here. So this is the plan as in the aggregate. So for both portions of the liability, you're still funding them in one pot of assets with one investment strategy. Over the last year, the expected investment income was about 1.7 million, but the assets returned 3.4 million during fiscal year ending 2025. So another strong year from an investment perspective. Over the last 3 years, it's been above and beyond the 6.25% return assumption that we've been assuming. In the last 5 years, the compounded annual return is about just over 8% per year. Now, you'll see in the top left-hand corner of this page, there was the return from fiscal year 21 of just under 30%. That's going to drop off, and we still have that tough year of 22 to be recognizing in the assets. So if you remember, for purposes of calculating the funding contribution for the plan, we calculate an actuarial value of assets as opposed to using the market value of assets. And that recognizes investment gains and losses over a 5-year period. And by investment gains and losses, I mean investment returns above and beyond the 6.25% return assumption, right? So this past year was a 12.5% return, so it's double their expectation. Those gains are not fully recognized this year. Only 20% will be recognized this year, and the other 80% will be deferred and recognized over the next 4 years. In total, the actuarial value of assets, which is in the market value of assets, are graphed in the bottom left-hand corner. So on the left-hand side, left-hand bars are the market value of assets over the last 5 years. And the right-sided bar, the lighter green bar, is the actuarial value of assets. You can see the actual value of assets is less than the market value this year. That is because there are more deferred gains than there are losses reflected in the actuarial value of assets. So absent any future losses, that means that it'll actually put some downward pressure on the return, on the contributions in the future.
Yeah, I guess what I was, and you saw my blabber in the emails, but and this will just work itself out, but next year, when we drop off the 29.13, that's going to put a lot of pressure on, so that we could expect the funded value and the actuarial value to kind of
Yeah,
go down,
that is correct.
just because the 29.13 is going to drop off, but then when the 14.61 drops off, it'll do the
Right.
kind of the opposite.
And you'll see
effect.
when we get to the projections in a little bit later in the presentation, you'll see the first year, you'll see the contribution go up, spike up a bit, and then start to come back down again. And that's reflecting that 29% dropping off
Right.
next year. And
Right,
then,
so
and
again,
then-
people see next year change in a strange way. I'm just trying to anticipate that
Right,
and make sure everybody
yeah.
understands that.
and that'll be the case unless there's another strong year in the assets. If there's an offsetting gain again this year, that would help to offset that a bit. But it will be it will may look strange to people, but it's not unexpected from our perspective, and we'll kind of talk about that as we talk through the
Okay.
budget for upcoming years.
Tom, it looks like IPAC has a lot of work this year.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to page 4. Again, this is a graph you see I bring every year, looking at the plan's target asset allocation. That's the top part of this page. We've represented the asset allocation with this bubble graph. Each bubble here represents a asset class that the plan is invested in. The larger the bubble, the higher the allocation is to that particular investment class. Along the bottom, along the left-hand side of the graph are the expected returns for any given asset class, and along the bottom part of that graph is the volatility, the riskiness associated with that class. So where you don't want to be, where you have a higher risk is in the top or towards the right side of that graph. So where you don't want to be is on the bottom right of that graph, because it's high risk, low return. Likewise, where you would like to be is as far to the left and up on that graph, because that's, high returns, lower risk. There's a black dot kind of in the middle there that represents your entire portfolio, the expected return and the risk associated with your portfolio as it stands today. On the bottom portion of this page, we look at the expected distribution of returns over a 5 to 30-year time horizon. And obviously, in the short term, the volatility and the deviation in returns is going to be greater, because there's a higher probability of really good returns or really bad returns in 1 year or 2 year periods. But over time, the returns start to normalize, and they kind of tend towards what we call the 50th percentile. And for this particular plan, the 50th percentile over a 30-year period is about 6.6%. And what that means is that 50% of the time, we expect that the assets will outperform, will exceed at least 6%, 6.6% as a performance.
And that's, so since our target is 6.25%, that's a pretty good analysis, correct?
Right, so your current assumption is 6.25. This time last year, this analysis was about 6.8%. So, after when the pandemic came and inflation went up high and interest rates rose, the analysis flew through the roof. I told you to sit tight, stay at 6.25. You worked hard to get down to 6.25. Do not give it back. And the numbers are starting to slowly fall back to where they were. They're not there yet. Will they ever get back there? We don't know. But I still think a 6.25 is a good conservative assumption. You have a healthy funded liability with that assumption. So I recommend no changes to the interest rate assumption at this point in time.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, so the next couple of pages, we'll look at the plan's liability. So this first part is, for again, the non-police portion of the liability. The top left-hand corner shows the accrued liability. So this is the liability that's been earned to date as of the valuation date, and it's remained pretty level, right at around $14.5 million over the last few years. Again, that's a function of the fact that this plan is closed and much older. There have been some liability gains, meaning the experience of the demographics has been favorable. Slightly lower salary increases than expected. People have been terminating for the most part and retiring as we've expected them to, so no surprises there. The unfunded accrued liability is represented in the bottom left-hand corner. So this is the shortfall, the portion of the liability that has not been funded by assets, and it's down to about $400,000 this year. So really close to 100% funded. A big contributing factor to that big decrease from 1.1 to 0.4 this year is the investment returns over the last several years coming into play in combination with the liability not growing as much as expected. So we expected an unfunded liability of about 0.7 million, and it's only 0.4, so you're in a good position. So again, the funded ratio is at 97.5%, just under 100%.
In your experience, where does that put us relative to other plans of this type?
At the top of the tier. I mean, very few plans.
Top 5%?
Yeah, very few plans are 100% funded in the state of Connecticut. Even plans that have been closed, there's been plans that have been closed for 20 years and are still 60 or 70% funded. So this is an excellent
97.5 is pretty
excellent
good.
position to be in, yes.
Thanks.
John, actually,
Yeah,
this plan is closed, and it's so close to being fully funded, there's a possibility, depending on, the market, that you might come back here in 12 months and say that it's overfunded. In which case, should we start thinking ahead if that's a possibility, or, just sit tight until then and maybe we have some decisions to make at that time?
I think we should start thinking ahead, and I have some thoughts I've brought with me today that we'll get to in just a bit that kind of talk about the funding policy with respect to the two portions of the liability and how to approach it going forward to help. Because while being 100% funded is great, it brings a new set of risks with it, right? There's nothing more volatile than a fully funded plan because, if your plan is at 60 or 70% funded, you can lose 10% on your assets. It's not going to affect your funded ratio all that much. While it's not great to lose 10% on your assets, it's not going to impact your funded ratio all that much. But if you are 100% funded and you lose 10% of your asset value, it's going to have a huge impact on your funded ratio and therefore the contribution that needs to be made by the town. So we want to protect that volatility,
Right.
hedge
part-
against that volatility as
And
best
part of
as
my
we can.
point before is, I think just because what drops off, that 97.5 is going to go down next year. My odds are that 97.5 is going to go down next year, just because that we're dropping off the 1/5 of the big return.
After that, we might have to talk.
Well, I know, I mean, it'll vacillate back and forth, but, right? But, yeah, but we want to decrease the volatility of that stuff too, so. Oh, we could. Well, let her finish her stick. I have other things to say.
All right, so moving on to page 6, this is the police portion of the liability. The story's a little bit different on the police side. Again, this is an open plan with new members entering, and you'll remember that the active population actually grew from 19 to 22. So part of the growth right there is just due to the population size growing. And there were some experienced losses as far as the liability is concerned on the police side. Much higher salary increases than expected, than we were expecting with our assumptions. And there was some retirements. There were some retirements as expected, but they were with people that were much older and with higher benefits than we were projecting in our study last year. So that produced a liability loss. We expected the liability to grow to about 16.9 million, and it actually grew to 17.5 million. So a $600,000 loss on the liability there. This was partially offset by the favorable investment performance. Again, we expected the actuarial value of assets to be about 15 million for the police portion of the liability, and it's actually 15.3. So the net impact is that the unfunded accrued liability grew to $2.2 million this year. We expected it to be about $1.9 million. So the unfunded liability is about $300,000 higher than we expected. Despite that, the funded ratio did slightly grow from 86.9% to 87.4%, but we did expect it to kind of get closer to 89%. So it didn't go up as much as we expected due to the liability experience during the year. That was partially offset by the favorable investment performance, though. All right, so moving on to the next 2 pages. So we've looked at the assets, we've looked at the liabilities. We put those 2 numbers together, and this determines the actuarially determined contribution. Now, the numbers for this year, for fiscal year 27, are based on what our recommendation is. It might not be what you land on after our discussion tonight, but is based on what our final recommendation will be, and we'll get to those details in just a second. But before we get into the actual numbers here, just a reminder that the actual determined contribution is made up of 3 main pieces, as you can see on the top graph here. The first being the normal cost. So that's the value of the benefits expected to be earned by the active members over the course of the next year due to accruing another year of service. For the town portion of liability, you can see that this piece is decreasing for the most part year after year. That's because the active population is just decreasing, so the normal cost will decrease with it. The second component is what is known as the past service cost, and that's the amortization of the unfunded accrued liability. That has been decreasing as well for the town portion of the liability because the plan is almost 100% funded. So once the plan gets to 100% funded, that portion of the contribution would be 0. It's down to about $50,000 this year. And the last component is a small component, is just an interest component to take into account the fact that we calculate the contribution and everything as of July 1st, 2025, but the contribution is actually not going to be made until another year later. So it's just to adjust for the timing difference there. On the next page, These are the police results, and so unsurprisingly, because of the liability losses and the losses I talked about just a few minutes ago, the police contribution has gone up. Again, the normal cost component has gone up. This is primarily because the active population has grown, partially due to that and partially due to the liability losses that I spoke to earlier, namely the higher salary increases. So the higher salaries means higher projected benefits in the future. Therefore, that present value of the benefits being earned is also higher. The past service cost has also gone up a bit, and that is because the unfunded liability has grown more than we expected it to, so the past service costs component has gone up as well. And again, then there's the small interest component. All right, so in the next couple of pages, I've laid out a few scenarios. These results just show the results as of the valuation date. A couple pages after this kind of get into our projections, and I think we want to look at both together, because you don't want to just, when you're making a decision about changing your funding policy, you want to not just look at the impact today, but the long-term impact with respect to funding of the plan. So for both I have 4 scenarios here. First is just last year's results as a baseline for comparison, and for the 25 results, I've showing you 3 sets of numbers. The first is the baseline. So this is just the updating of the census data, updating of the assets. This is what the contribution would be if we didn't change anything, right? So in total, the contribution grows from just under $900,000 last year to about $950,000, a little over $950,000 this year. Our first recommendation is to update the mortality assumption. So about 5 years ago, I came here and told you that the Society of Actuaries released a special new mortality table that was specific to public pension plans. And that was known as the Pub 2010 mortality table. And I recommended that you adopt it, and you did. And if you recall, those who were here 5 years ago, I said the Society of Actuaries would be releasing a new table about every 5 years or so. So here we are, about 5 years later, and a new table has been released. It has very little impact on the liabilities, as you can see here. It actually decreases the liability a little bit. So what it tells us is that the Society of Actuaries, with its new studies, has realized that its outlook on mortality was a little rosier than reality over the last 5 years. Now, interestingly enough, this study ends with mortality experience through 2019, so it does not reflect the pandemic. The Society of Actuaries doesn't know what it's going to do about those years of data. It may choose to ignore it altogether because it just creates too much noise and is not credible or reliable to long-term expectation with respect to mortality. So it's not skewed by that experience.
It's a good thing Dick Hill isn't here.
So with that update to mortality, it brings the contribution down slightly to just under $950,000 for the year. The next set of numbers is a recommendation to update the amortization period with respect to how you fund the unfunded liability. Currently, so last year, we've been using a closed amortization period, which means every year we've declined the amortization period by 1. Last year, we got down to 10 years. And last year, I said that we really, in reality, don't want to go below 10 years because the shorter the period is, the more volatility you could have around your contribution. If you have a really adverse event, whether it's the investments or on the liability side, and your unfunded liability grows or shrinks by way more than expected, if you amortize that over a really short period of time, you don't have a lot of time to pay that off, to make that pay that difference. So we're currently at 10 years. You could stay at a 10-year open period, which from the town side isn't a bad idea, right? Because you're almost 100% funded anyways. The thing about an open amortization period is kind of, you liken that to a mortgage. It's like refinancing your mortgage every single year to a new 30-year term or whatever. If you do that, you're never going to pay off your loan, right? So you're never going to pay down that unfunded liability unless there's something favorable happens in the investments in the market or something to that extent. But because the town liability is almost 100% funded, a 10-year open wouldn't be the worst thing. What we're recommending to do to help kind of protect against the volatility is switch to a 10-year layered base. And what that means is each year so we set up a 10-year base last year. This year, what we do is we're looking at the incremental change in the unfunded liability from last year to this year, and amortizing just that small component over a new 10-year period. So now we have two bases. We have the 10-year base from last year, which now has 9 years left on it, and then a new 10-year base that we'll set up this year. Going back to the mortgage analogy, it's kind of similar to you purchase a home, you take out a mortgage. A few years later, you decide you want to redo your kitchen, and you take out a home equity loan or something of that nature. It's a separate loan to fund just that portion. And that's over a different term. It's separate from your original loan. And then maybe a couple of years later, you want to add an addition, and you would take out another loan, and so on and so forth. The same idea. So you're only taking out a new amortization for the incremental change each year. In the absence of gains and losses, you're still expected to be 100% funded over a 10-year period. It just helps to limit the volatility, because every year's experience is being amortized over a 10-year period. Now, we could do 15 years, or we could do 10 years, or we could do somewhere in between. The longer that amortization period, the less volatility you will have, but the longer it will take to fully pay off your unfunded liability. So that's, in theory, that's the description. Here's the numbers, and if we go to the next page, or let's skip a few pages, these are just caveats. So here's the projections. So this is the 10-year layered projection. So this page is in the aggregate, okay? Now, if we looked, so first to address Tom's concern, if you look in that graph in the top left-hand corner, you can see that black line represents the contribution. You can see how it spikes in that first year and then starts to come back down. That's the recognition of that 29% return falling off, pushing up the contribution. But under the 10-year layered amortization, you'll see that the contributions kind of remain fairly level, around $1 million every year for the first 10 years. And after 10 years, when this first initial base that we set up last year falls off, the contribution drops, and then kind of drops for a few years, and then slowly starts to increase as the plan gets to 100% funded. Under this scenario, the plan is expected to be fully funded within about 5 or 6 years from now. And this is in the aggregate. But if we go on to the next page, we'll look at the town first and then the police. And it's two very different pictures because of the funded status of both portions of the liability. On the non-police portion, you're already just under 100% funded, so that contribution is expected, no matter what your amortization policy is, the contribution is going to slowly decrease over the next 10 years or so and then be zero for the town portion of the liability. That's expected. When we get to the open amortization projection, you'll see a very similar looking number here, as you see right here, for the town portion of the liability. If we go to the next page, this is the police portion, which is obviously a much bigger portion of the contribution because it's a much, they're still open and accruing benefits. Again, it follows the same pattern as the aggregate because it's kind of driving it. Slightly increases over time for the first 10 years until you hit that 100% funding target, and then it drops, and you're essentially just funding the normal cost at that point in time. This is the 10-year layered approach, so this is what it looks like. If we go to the next page, this is what 10-year open would look like. So the actually determined contribution is smoother over time, but if you look towards the middle of the page, or if you look to the right graph on the right, you never quite hit 100% funded, right? Because we're using a 10-year open amortization. So you're going to approach 100%, but you're never going to quite get there on that policy. This isn't the aggregate again, so let's go to the next page. This is the non-police. So again, this graph looks very similar to the graph on the layered basis because, again, you're almost 100% funded. Your funding policy doesn't really matter if you're 100% funded because there's no unfunded liability to pay down. So this decision doesn't make as much of a difference for the town side of the liability as it does for the police. But if you go to the next page, here's the police contribution with a 10-year open amortization. It's a much more smooth, level contribution, but again, the police plan portion of liability never gets to 100% funded during the 20-year projection here. So that was a lot of information, a lot to digest. I'll give you guys, give you all a second to kind of think about it, and I'm happy to answer any questions, because I'm sure there are questions.
A question for my cobweb memory.
Yeah.
It seems to me that we have set differential goals in the last couple of years for the two portions, the town employee, the non-police portion and the police portion, that the goals were not 100% for either one, but it was higher for the town portion.
Right, so, the town portion's goal was 95%. You've already passed it, so it's,
And the police goal was
85%.
85%.
Again, you've already passed that
And
as
we
well.
passed that.
Yeah, so you've achieved those goals. So I think we're at the point, it's time to reevaluate the goals and how you want to get there.
What would you suggest is best practice in terms of goals I mean, it's nice to be 100%, but there are reasons not, as you pointed out, there are reasons not to be 100%.
Right, on the town side, the non-police side, I think 100% is a good goal. Really, the ideal place to be is by the time your last active member retires, that is fully funded, because.
It converges to a zero balance.
Because you want the contributions that are being made, that are being funded by taxpayer dollars, you want that paying for the services they're receiving from the employees today. You don't want those employees to be retired and you're still trying to close that gap with future taxpayer dollars. There's an inequity there in the different periods of generations of taxpayers. So on the town side, that's a pretty easy question, in my
Right.
opinion. You want to get to 100% by the time that last person retires. If you can get there sooner and then maintain it, that's even better.
And on the town side, the last person receives payment.
They're still, the payments are going to
50
continue
years
on
from
for
now?
another 50 years probably, yes.
Yeah. So we're still a long ways from that last payment.
Yes, you're not far from the last person leaving employment, but then that person has their.
Retirement.
Their entire retirement, which hopefully is a long time
Right.
for them to receive that benefit.
Okay, and then on the police side?
On the police side, 100% is great. I don't think you need to be at 100%. But at the same time, adopting a funding policy that is intended to never get you there is a slippery slope. And, you're well-funded, you're at 80, just under 90% right now. I think the layered base approach is a good one, because it helps protect the volatility there, as opposed to an open amortization approach.
But you pointed out that 10 years is a choice. We could make a different choice.
You could make a different choice. You could change the amortization to a 15-year layered, which would reduce all the contributions each year slightly, and it would just take longer to get to that 100%, which I think is okay.
Yeah.
This is an open group. I don't think there's anything wrong with being under 100% funded, because remember, at the beginning of the presentation, this is very young. There's a long duration for this liability, so there's plenty of time to make up for that funding.
For those organizations with open enrollment funds,
Yeah.
what's best practice in terms of that period of time, that horizon?
So it depends on where different communities are at different points in their amortization policies and different places of affordability.
And different starting points.
Yes.
Some towns are at 60.
Right. If the towns that are at 60 and they're just trying to scrape up the money they can every year.
Might be on
they might
25
be
year.
They might be resetting down to a 20-year declining period right now.
Right.
Versus talking about layered bases. Layered bases just provide much better protection against volatility. And that's something I think we've always talked about here is
We like smooth.
smooth contributions, as little volatility as possible. So I think a layered base approach helps to achieve that goal. I happen to show you 10 years. I could definitely go back and show you 15 years as an option as well.
I think it would be useful to see like 12 and 15, just to see what difference that makes.
Why?
Why?
Yeah, I mean, we could try everything, we can try lots of things.
Just-
I really don't think it makes that much difference for us since,
I'd like to know what difference it makes.
okay. So for Jack.
Sure,
Thank you.
We can certainly do that.
So everyone on the board is aware as well, We also have a strategy working with our labor attorney that not to be 100% funded in these portfolios. So it's not really for this meeting, but if anyone would like to know a little bit more about that strategy, please stop by my office, we can go over it.
And then you'd mentioned before, the goal for police was 85 by 2025, which we hit, right? And then non-police was 95 by 2029,
Something like that,
which
yeah.
I think as of right now, we've
We've already,
hit as well.
already,
So,
yeah.
pretty good job.
The
Okay.
investment
There was,
performance has kind of helped a lot.
But on the town ones, though, so go back to some of the town views of this. This is the police one, right?
That's everybody.
Okay,
One more, go back one more.
all groups,
One that's, yeah,
Right there.
non-police.
right. I guess on this one, you know, where's the one, yeah, when we start to get to 100, why are we putting any money in? You know, like, why, to me, you know, if we're at 100, and especially with what Dan said, I don't understand why we're putting any money in.
So because you're still, there's still a normal cost associated with active employees at that point in time. So if you're at 100 and people accrue a benefit during the year, the liability is going to grow. If you don't fund that normal cost component, then you'll fall below 100 again. You could, so you have to fund at least once you get to, so remember, let's go back to the three components. If you could go back a few more graphs. Keep going. Keep going. One more page. So remember this graph, you have the normal cost, which is the lowest portion of that top graph.
Right,
That's the value of benefits being earned by active members. So the town plan is expected to be at 100%, say, in 2 years. In 2 years from now, you still have active employees who are earning benefits. So that portion of the contribution is still not zero. The second portion, the past service costs at 100%, that part will be zero. The orange portion will be just will be smaller because it's just interest on a smaller number. So you still have to fund the portion of the benefits being earned every year that haven't been earned. Every year, the benefit grows.
Every year the bar goes up
Yes,
some,
some.
as
And-
long as you've got active employees
But you have active employees.
accruing
Correct.
additional benefits.
And that's why back to that projection graph, once the active employees are gone in about 10 years from now, the contribution is then zero.
okay.
I guess to Tom's point, you certainly wouldn't want to count on this, but it is possible to conceive the plan being so funded at some point where from investment gains, if it's a good year, could be used for that normal cost. But again, you wouldn't
Yes.
want to assume
Right,
that.
right. So once you get to the point where you're at 100%, then you have an option. You can take that surplus so you say you're 102%. Let's do simple numbers, right? You have $1 million of liability, $1,002,000 of assets, or $1,020,000 of assets. Your normal cost, say, is $50,000, but you have $20,000 of surplus. You can use that $20,000 of surplus to offset the normal cost and only contribute $30,000 as opposed to contribute the $50,000 normal cost. That is an option. Doing that, though, is going to cause your accrued liability to your funded ratio to continue to grow more, as opposed.
Well, I know, but if we're at 103,
Yeah.
we want to do that, don't we?
Yeah, you can do that. So that will help keep you that'll help keep you around 100%, as opposed to continue to fund the full normal cost. And then now your funded ratio is going to continue to grow beyond 103%. You don't want
Right,
that.
and so given what Dan said about the policy and stuff, I would think that we would do that if we got to those future
Yes,
years, right?
yes.
In that sort of way, right?
Right. And very likely I could come back next year with the town's results potentially and be in that scenario. We might be at over 100% funded next year on the town side, and talk about how do you handle that
Okay,
negative amortization,
Right.
negative past service costs.
okay. Do you need any decisions for us tonight or not?
Yes, on how to proceed with that amortization policy. Do we want to, well, I think we wanted to get some more analysis, so I think we're going to table the decision
Yes.
temporarily until we get some more analysis.
Until we get more analysis, okay. So,
Delay doesn't have any impact on
No, these are just budgetary figures for next year, so really we have
And
to
anything we do would likely decrease these numbers, if anything. So I think that 980 is your high point, most likely, from a budget perspective. If you put the highest number in, it's easier to pull back that number than to try
Meaning
to
if you
increase.
stretched out the amortization like Jack.
Yeah,
wants
so if
to
you
see.
were to do 12 or 15
Yeah, we could do a 100-year
years-
amortization. What the hell?
Do 12 or 15-year amortization, that 980,000 would decrease.
But I think,
Or
but,
if we slow down the goal, the approach to the goal.
Yeah,
but, I mean, I guess Jack, part of Jack's question and my question too is what looks dodgy in that space? I mean, like I could say, oh yeah, let's do it 500 years, what do I care?
well,
You know,
I would never,
I know, so I mean.
if you wanted 500 years, you'd have a really big, bold caveat in my report saying that's.
Well,
not
I get it,
feasible.
so that's what, but that's part of Jack's question
Yeah.
is what, just like 6.25, just like the spender ratio, what's kosher and what's dodgy?
I think,
My question was, what is best practice?
but yeah, I mean, in this situation, you could, best practice in my opinion, in your situation is the layered amortization approach to mute the volatility. Now, the number of years, I think anywhere from 10 to 15 years is reasonable.
I mean, I guess to that point, we could ask you for anything we want. Part of your job is to say, look, I'll provide you whatever information you want, but I really don't think
Right.
you want to touch 50, 100.
Exactly.
But
It's up
why-
to this
and-
board to set the assumptions.
Right.
I would just provide my recommendations and my expert opinions, but you set the assumptions and I follow your
So,
direction.
I think though, 15 years will make it go down a little bit,
Oh, yeah.
but why, you know, again, Why?
I'd like to understand how sensitive it is.
okay, all right, so, let's,
Because it is a chosen assumption, and it's within the range of best practice.
okay.
Okay, do you think we can have those numbers by December 10th?
Oh, certainly.
Because then I could put it on the December meeting for this board to
Okay.
vote on.
So let's come back with those numbers and we'll delay the decision on this until then.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Jen.
Jen?
Okay, let's see.
2000,
Oh, we have to set the meeting, we have to set the meeting dates for next year now because they have to be set within 30 days of the end of the year, I guess.
yeah, they have to be at the town clerk's office
Um,
by December 1st, so they can set the meeting schedule for next year.
So these were the suggested dates. We can change them later if we want to, but, and I think just to meet the requirement, because I have no idea what I'm doing on those dates, but we'll, are they our usual dates, like Mondays?
They're the usual dates. It's usually the second or third Monday of the month, depending upon like holiday. So January with the 12th, because the following Monday's Martin Luther King Day, so we're closed that day. And then February is very similar with President's Day, so.
Right, so we stay in the cadence of the Monday.
Yeah, if we
second or
took
third
this
Monday.
year, and either, I think it reduced a day, so last year's meeting, or this year's meeting is on, what is it, November 16th, today's the 17th, so it's just a day off based on
Okay.
the calendar.
Okay, so does anybody have any objection to this? So,
Just one question. When do we set the budget dates?
The budget dates, we'll send out the budget dates in early December.
Okay.
And it's usually the week in February, which is the Board of the joint meeting, but it's a Board of Selectmen meeting where the Board of Finance is invited. And then in March, we have the Board of Finance meetings.
But that's kind of set independently of the normal
We
Board
have,
of Finance meetings.
it's independent of the Board of Finance meetings, yes. And the Board of Selectmen meetings.
okay, so can I have a motion to adopt the dates?
So moved.
Get a second?
Second.
Oh, okay,
Second.
okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. All right, so that's done. All right, Chuck, you're up. So,
Sign that.
oh, I gotta sign it.
You be the man.
Don't tell Michaels we changed them all when Tom signed it. It's every Wednesday and it's only quarterly.
All right,
There you go.
we're going to switch it up a little bit here. We're going to talk trash. I was asked to come and talk tonight about this grant that a company named Waste at Zero helped us obtain. First off, I'm here, I know many of you, right? You're used to seeing me here to talk in my role as the chair of the Energy Task Force. Tonight I'm here as my role with Sustainable Southbury, which is, hopefully you've all heard of it. It's a nonprofit. We operate in town. I was approached by this company, Waste Zero, which is one of the bigger names in this space, to help us. They wanted to connect, oh, can you go back, please? They wanted to connect us to the town so they could apply for this grant. It was the second round of this grant. It's called Sustainable Materials Management. It's a deep grant, and it's really about trash management and reducing your waste. So tonight, I'm happy to say we received the award, and so we're here to request the Board of Finance approve that we accept the award. So I'll say right off the bat, this is not my deck. I was asked to talk to it, so if you want to go too deep up in anything, I might possibly have to come back to you. But I think I can talk to enough detail on this that you'll get comfortable with the way this grant works. Basically, to give you the bottom line up front, it's about $157,000 in change with no obligations to it. In the town, the way it's designed, the town can stop at various toll gates and elect not to go any further without any strings attached. So that's part of their learning in the second round. You see, this is the second round of the grant. The first round, they just came out with a bunch of funding for 10 different towns, and it didn't go terribly well. I think only 3 or 4 of them took the grant. The rest, as they put it, panicked and backed out at the last minute, and DEEP ended up holding the bag on it. So they changed the way it works in this round. I'll describe that to you. So what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of background so you understand the context, and then I'll explain how the grant works, and I'll also talk a little bit about their projections for revenue that we might be able to generate by reducing our trash. So yeah, if you could go to the next slide, please. So this is the background. I think everybody's familiar with the fact that Myra has closed, and since then we've been shipping our trash out of state. I think I always heard that Connecticut, about 50% of our trash goes to Ohio. This slide says nearly half of Connecticut and Massachusetts trash is shipped out of state. In some cases, quite far away, down to where I was born in Alabama. So this is, to my mind, is not sustainable, right? What's going to happen if their landfills fill, and also what's going to happen if they decide to raise their prices, which they might do, certainly, as the landfills begin to fill. So clearly we need to do something about it, and in my mind, this is why DEEP is now doing a second round of these grants and trying to get more towns involved in reducing their trash. Next slide, please. So this is the mechanism that the DEEP is proposing with this grant, and it's beyond proposing. It's what they require you to do as a town if you're going to move forward, all the way through all the 3 toll gates. And it's you see it's called unit-based pricing. That's a bit of jargon. It's really pay to throw. So each resident would pay based on the units of trash they're throwing in our landfill, in our transfer station. And what this graph does is it shows you the relative impact over time on a per capita basis. So the leftmost bar is they're comparing it to the U.S. average as of 1990. And then the second bar, or column really, shows you the 34 years of effort brought it down roughly 17–18% down to 749 pounds per capita. And that was through all the things you're familiar with, right? curbside recycling, single stream recycling, this thing called extended producer responsibility, where we try to get the manufacturers to be responsible for the, the waste that ultimately results from their products. A lot of education and so on, right? That brought it down to about 749. Now, as you scan the columns to the right, those are the towns that in Connecticut took up the effort, with the exception of the rightmost towns, Stonington. Stonington's been at this business of pay to throw for a very long time. So they're the kind of the poster child of it. You see before they integrated food scraps, they had reduced their trash by 51%, which is unheard of, right? Except for these programs. They layered in food waste and they brought it down to 55% reduction. What you see in Kent and Middletown and Madison and Guilford and Woodbury, who took up this pay-to-throw grant in the first round, they're doing pretty darn well. They're down to nearly the 50% range, around the 40% range in reduction already. In Woodbury's case, it's the first 9 months of it. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things that happens, right? Look at the middle bar or the middle column that says Southbury, right? So we've been at food scrap collection now for 27 months, and we did a ton of outreach. We did a ton of education. When Sustainable Southbury actually pays for this still, and so we were, very motivated to get people using the program. We literally sat at the transfer station for a very long time, and enjoying my retirement. But it's you can see all of that. We got up to 10% of that 22% of your trash that is typically food waste. So we didn't make a big penetration in the town. And this is their projections, Waste Zero's projections, and they align with the projections that we in Sustainable Southbury has been doing on how penetrated we are. It's kind of a tricky question to answer. But if you look over at the rightmost, Woodbury has become the poster child of this, and they're now at over 50% of that 22% realized in just the first 9 months of the program. And they happen to use a bag concept for their food scraps. Residents are required to purchase a bag, and they put their food scraps in it and take it for collection. You look like you have a question.
What does UBP mean?
Yeah, so that's unit-based pricing, and that was on the previous slide. It's
Or user bag purchase?
unit-based pricing.
But is it also user bag purchase?
Oh, that's a good one, and no, I don't think so. I think you're sharper than I am. I didn't even think of that. So, there's a big potential here, and what's likely to happen is it's logical, right? It's the biggest single portion of your trash is in food scraps by weight. So, people are naturally going to try and start removing that from the trash and recycling it. And so you can expect that food scrap collections will go way up. Now, if I can digress for a moment, the town asked us, Sustainable Southbury, to do a study on alternative ways of handling food scrap collection last year. And we did the study. We looked at 4 or 5 different methods of doing on-site composting rather than hauling it to New Milford Farms as we do today, where it's turned into compost. Basically it came down to bringing in a machine that would be run nightly, and it takes that food scraps and reduces it down dramatically by heat and pressure, and gets all the water out of it, and you end up with like a 5-gallon bucket out of a 65-gallon toter or something like that. And that becomes a soil amendment that you can give away to residents. Even if you put it in the trash, it would greatly reduce your trash stream. So the reason I'm mentioning this, there is some possibility that rather than a bag system, we could use this to help fund the the installation of that machine at the transfer station. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Next slide, please. And food waste, it turns out, has a what they're calling an outsized greenhouse gas importance. So, you know, the tagline here is, if it were a country, it would be the third largest greenhouse gas emitter in the world, which you know, it's logical, right? I mean, it either goes into the landfills, and the bags, you know, the bulldozers are running over them and squishing them up, and the bags, you know, break, and the methane ends up percolating down in the compressed landfill and exiting out. They often have ventilation tubes in them anyhow. Or it goes into an incinerator and it goes directly out. So that's just you know, if another reason why we might inspire people to participate in this, right? Because there is a segment of the population that cares about this impact in addition to the cost. Next slide, please. So this is how it all works. You know, I mentioned there's no obligations. It's broken into 3 phases, really a 4th phase, but you can think of it as 3 phases. In the first phase, we would be awarded up to $17,000 to do what they call groundwork. So we're doing stakeholder engagement at this point. We're doing a little bit of public engagement. We're doing program design, if you will, where, you know, there's a lot of planning and figuring out exactly how we're going to implement all those options I was sort of hinting at in the previous slides. Is it going to be a bag thing? You know, how are we going to collect the funds? So on and so forth. How are we going to engage the public to inspire them to approve for this? Now, down at the bottom, you see the little lock that's partially obscured, but you know, that just says, okay, at the end of that, there's a toll gate, and you decide whether to move on to the next phase or not. No harm, no foul if you don't. You can see then an additional, if we decide to move on, the additional phase that comes in with the majority of the funds of that 157,000 is 105,000 and change, and that goes to help us implement the program. So we coordinate vendors, we do a lot more outreach, and you know, we start monitoring and you know, getting the public engaged and inspired to be an active member and partner in this. Once again, there's another toll gate at the end of this, and we can decide to move on to what's called monitoring. We're really evaluating the program results and tweaking it, and you know, getting it set to be self-sustaining thereafter. And they've allocated $35,000 for that. That totals up to the $157,000 and change I was talking about earlier. So it's phased in, and this is the big difference from the first round and the second round. They learned to you know, put guardrails in, so the town doesn't want to move forward. They don't end up holding the bag.
Chuck, it says phase 4, seamless year 2 transition. So the first 3 phases are all supposed to take place within the course of 12 months?
Yeah, actually, the next slide goes to that, so thank you. So this is the expected timeline. The first 2 phases are in that 3-month time period, and then you move into a 1-year program official date where you're doing the monitoring and evaluating and approving and so on over that period of time. And this grant is really about technical assistance. I didn't mention it to begin with, we were approached by Waste Zero. We are at liberty to choose one of the other service providers. Waste Zero is just one of the contracted ones. So that'd be a decision that we would be making relatively quickly. In my mind, we ought to do some due diligence on it, reach out to surrounding towns and get some reference checks on this company. They are one of the big names in this space. I've been hearing about them for years. But, you know, if it were me, I'd like to get a little more comfortable in it. I think, you know, Dan and other town leaders will want to do that. Next slide. Yeah, so I mentioned this is their projections. So just to take you from the top right down, the last year, the mean solid waste, the trash, was at 2,366 tons. We have a very low tip fee. I'm not sure how long we're going to be able to enjoy that tip fee. Most, it's $85.25 a ton. Most towns I know of are a fair amount north of $100 a ton. But those, nevertheless, the last year cost of MSW was about $201,000, almost $202,000. They're projecting, kind of on the conservative side of that 50% to 44% reduction, similar to what happened in round one. You would bring at that same cost, your trash would be $133,000 and $123. And I think Dan can tell you, but I think that $85.25 a ton is good for another year, if I remember right.
It is good for another year, Chuck, yes.
Yeah.
Chuck,
Yeah.
when you say they are estimating, is it Deep or Dan, have you
This-
provided data to Deep?
No, sorry, this is Waste Zero's projections.
Okay. But
Yeah.
it's not based on any info that we've provided them, or we have provided them with the info, and that's what they base their projections on?
They got it from the DEEP reports, is my understanding. And we report the,
That's
Yeah,
what I
to
mean.
Deep, yeah.
Where are they getting the info? Did they come to us or to the state, which we've already reported to?
right. So, they're projecting 68,580 would be saved annually just through the reduced MSW. And then, we might realize if we start bagging up food scraps, we might be able to gain some additional fees from that. And even the trash goes in a separate bag, an orange bag, in most of these unit-based pricing scenarios. And that cost typically ranges from $1 to $2 a bag. They just estimated doing $1 a bag, and out, that comes to about $115,724 in revenue for a net total of $184,304. So, these are just projections at this point. I presume they would be sharpened up a good deal during the design phase, but,
The math, I don't think seems to work there. 1562 is a 34% reduction from 2366.
sorry, what are you seeing, the 1562?
The ton?
Oh, the tons, yeah.
That's a 34% reduction, 44% reduction.
That's pretty good. I didn't even check their math, so.
So I'm not,
It's
I'm
kind
just checking that that's the way it's supposed to work.
It's kind of beside the point, because we're not planning on this gain. It kind of bread boxes it for you in my mind of, how much we might be able to do. But, all of this will be determined during the first phase of groundwork, where we sharpen up benefits and we decide exactly how we're going to implement the program, if we, choose to move forward.
Just so, I want to make sure it's black and white in my mind. The presumption of this program is that we're going to, either through bags or through some other mechanism, we're going to have a tipping fee at the landfill for any deposits there.
Yeah, yes, let's not get tangled up in terminology. Tipping fees stay either way, right? That's what we pay for
Okay.
to dispose of our trash. But
There-
yes.
There's going to be a
each-
tax on people that deposit trash.
No,
at
no,
the
it's not a
landfill.
tax. The tax is already there and embedded in, it's kind of hidden in the budget, right? What's going to be happening here is that people will have to pay for each bag of trash they throw.
We don't charge for bags today. This presumes we will move to a per bag charge.
If we decide to go through all 3 toll gates,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, good.
Chuck,
One other question. Are there any, is the town required to make any contributions to any of these phases?
No,
Financial contribute, so we're not encumbering any
No.
town resources
just,
in addition to what's coming in through the grant?
no, It'll be some of Dan's time, right, if you want to count opportunity costs.
Time, but not
Yeah,
dollars.
Not dollars.
Okay.
And Sustainable Southbury will be an active partner in this. We have a big interest in waste reduction, so we'll help with a lot of the public engagement. That's part of why I'm here tonight. right?
You're not expected to make contributions or receive contributions other than what you're displaying here?
No, we're a nonprofit, we're all volunteer. We don't charge for our services on anything,
Okay,
so.
thanks, Joe.
Chuck, quick question. Do you think if we follow these steps, given that, a large portion of Southbury is, condominium complexes, would we have the same success as a town like Woodbury in this?
I can't comment on what the distribution is like in Woodbury, so I don't know. It is striking to me that all the towns that they've been doing show about a 40 to 50% reduction in trash. And I gotta assume they're all different. And I have seen numbers like this reported elsewhere where they implement programs like this. But, I mean, even if it's 30%,
And-
20%, right? We're not gonna get there without that kind of thing.
The condo villages aren't in the base anyway, because
They're not
they're
in the
being
base.
picked up by,
Yeah, they're being picked by commercials.
so it's kind of like the population without the condos.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, so
Yeah, just one question. A lot of this, from what I see, apparently relies on individuals bringing their trash to the transfer station. Now, in town, if you look at the fact that Heritage Village probably has 25% of the total population, they have a trash pickup where they have specific rules, and the truck comes through and goes out of town and just gets rid of it. That doesn't go through our transfer station. There are a good number of other condominiums, including Traditions and others, where that type of commercial trash pickup is included in their HOA fee. So those people do not go to the transfer station, okay?
Right. Yep.
And let's say we have a third of the population that doesn't go down there. How does that impact this? And do we have a chance of making this work, when a good number of people now would have to start going into the transfer station that they don't go now? What kind of costs would it add to process this at the transfer station? And then we would start, as a town, to pay for the hauling out of the transfer station. I think those are just issues that, need to be looked at before we make, at least to me, a formal decision on what we want to do here.
Well-
The one thing, John, is that we have to think about if these numbers are accurate or estimated accurate, if we could save $184,000, that's about a fifth of a mil. So how would that affect the taxpayers in, let's say, Heritage Village that don't utilize a transfer station? They would get a little cut in their reduction in their tax basis, whereas the people that do utilize the transfer station would be paying, so they would pay a little more.
Right, so basically, we're subsidizing in some ways the people that do go to the transfer station now. The people that don't are subsidized, the people that do. But I guess a couple things. One is, I think, we can say yes tonight to the 17,000 without making any other decisions about the rest of it.
correct.
Okay, so I think the main goal here tonight, because this has like a week or two before we have to say yes to it all, is to say, are we okay saying yes to the 17,000? Okay, because it does not commit us to anything else beyond that. That's the and then hopefully before we get to the next phase, we would have better analysis of that, because I think the thing that still concerns me about the last two questions is you really have to sit down with Blake and the transfer station people and see, is there marginal cost that we're not talking about, right, that we don't see yet, okay?
Yeah.
But that would be part of the kind of analysis, I think, you know, that we would do in that with the 17,000, I guess. The last thing to me that, you know, I've kind of screamed a lot for monitoring. I feel like half of Woodbury stuff is that people are poaching in Southbury from Woodbury, because nobody really monitors, as far as I can tell, about who goes to our transfer station actively very well. So this would put in a kind of, like, it would put a kind of little bit more active attention to who's actually using the transfer station.
There are some funds in there to fund a greeter station.
Could we see the timeline slide again? Because I think to Tom's point, it makes me feel a little better, you know, to say, well, we can accept it conditionally, you know, at each phase, we can decide, nah, all right, we don't want to do this, et cetera. But it's, I guess, what, in the next 4 months, we would have to?
We'll be looking at it again.
Right, so it's just gonna come right back up in February. And I guess, again, I was going to ask Dan, thank you for bringing that up, you know, what the value of 1 mil is. I mean, I know, Chuck, I heard in your comments say, well, it's already kind of built in to the tax base, right? We're already charging people, et cetera, via taxes, but a fifth of a mil, for most households, they're not gonna see much reduction in the taxes, if anything at all, with a fifth of, even if we were to say, well, we're gonna lower the mill rate by a fifth of a mil, that's pennies, but now we're charging them to throw out their trash. I mean, it's just an increased cost for most houses. The savings on the mill rate is probably gonna be next to nothing. I mean, I do think that's something we have to consider. Even the slide where it says $184,000 in savings mentions infrastructure, it mentions spending that money. It doesn't mention tax relief or anything at all. So, I mean,
No,
is this not just another cost, saying to people, all right, from now on, here's another cost, you wanna throw out your trash, you need to pay?
Yeah, I mean, this is the point of phase one, right? To go through and figure all this out and design the program the way you want it to work. And then, assuming you come to something you want to work, then you can move ahead. If you don't,
Well,
you
I
just
guess,
don't do it.
yeah, well, I guess part of his point, though, is like 3 to 4 months is like light speed in Southbury time. So like, if we had 3 to 4 years, maybe I would say that's, you know, or a year even. But 3 to 4 months is like, you know, from our other ventures in Southbury stuff, that 3 to 4 years is like, you know, it's like the Flash, right? I don't know if we could really execute something like that in 3 to 4 months. So if we can't execute in 3 to 4 months, what happens? Can we delay that, or can we still, you know, like, if we tell Depot we're gonna do it in like 6 months or a year, can we still get the rest of it later?
These are good questions. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Even with a goal of 3 to 4 months, realistically, you're questioning whether we can do it, whether we
Well-
will do it.
Well,
That
it's not my question. I know we can't.
So is it a foregone conclusion we're gonna run off the cliff?
So, yeah, I don't know, like, but,
You'd be surprised what you can do when you really want to.
well, when you really want to, okay, but that's a different issue. Okay, but I think accepting the 17,000 commits us to nothing, really. I mean, it doesn't really, I see no downside in accepting the 17,000.
Commits us to learn
Yeah.
something.
Well, it commits us, maybe it commits us to blow it or never get it.
Steve,
but-
to your,
or, you know,
to your
but-
point, if we took the $184,000 off our hauling line from last year's budget, it would be a $12 annual savings on the average house in Southbury.
We're charging $1 per bag. I guess I'll be, a couple of weeks, thanks for the savings.
Well, yeah, but we're charging $1 a bag. It depends on your calculation, right? You're charging $1 a bag to maybe 1/3 or 1/2 of the population, right? You know, you just said you're not charging $1 a bag to Heritage Village. You're not charging $1 a bag to Dan up in Traditions, right?
Right.
So,
So they get the $12, yippee. I get the $12, and a couple of weeks later, I've spent the $12 on bags.
yeah, absolutely.
I support moving ahead with the $17
I'm fine, yeah, I'm fine
Okay.
moving ahead with
with
that.
one condition. The presumption here is that 44%, that was the number that was used, of the waste leaves will leave our town's waste stream. One of the elements, I'm an engineer. I like to see the math. One of the elements in this $17,000 scope needs to help rational people understand where does that 44% go?
Yeah, it's, we asked,
You described that a lot of it will go into the food scrap program.
yes, and there's actually a slide later on that kind of hints at this, but it, you know, we asked this question when we were filling out the grant, and, you know, the presumption is most people really will do the right thing, what they view as the right thing, if it's convenient and easy for them. So there's all this stuff that goes on at the transfer station that could cut down on mean solid waste, right? There's all this recycling. There's textiles, there's plastic films, which we don't really promote today. They just go in the trash, right? There's paper, which is the biggest piece, right? So you kind of lay all that out, and you make it convenient and easy and educate people on the options,
Right.
right? And, you know, you're going to have a fair percentage of the people, in my mind, taking advantage of those options.
I mean, I'll use my house as a simple example, because I've actually weighed our waste streams for the last year, in part because of some of the work you guys have done in the past on the food scraps. And in my household, 50% of the waste goes to recycling. 52, 53%.
Yeah.
Every week when I go to I'm carrying more weight to the recycling bins than I'm carrying, you know, to the
My house as well.
compactor.
Yeah, yeah.
So create this $184,000 savings, I think is critical, and the impact on the citizens of an additional fee associated with it, those need to be weighed as part of the journey going into.
You know, another thing that Sustainable Southbury is working on right now is getting people to just reduce their food waste. Everybody feels good about, you know, the other end of it. Hey, I'm composting it and everything else. But really, you just,
I'm Scottish, leftovers for a month.
All right.
I have a, myself, I never go. So out of the whole population in Southbury, how many people are actually going to the transfer station?
There-
That's a bigger ask to have them change that behavior.
yeah, and I'm going to clarify that point. There's no obligation on here for anybody to start using the transfer station or change their hauling contracts that they're already doing. We're just talking about the segment that goes to the transfer station
But do we know what
routinely.
the percentage of the people who go to the transfer station versus the rest of people in Southbury? So we
Yeah,
can get some
there-
kind of,
I've seen some deep estimates of that. You know, I didn't put them in this deck because I don't trust the numbers until we do
Fair.
some more analysis. But it was, you know, I'm trying to remember from my brain, you know, I have the same cobwebs of memory that Jack does. But sorry? Yeah, it's somewhere in that neighborhood is what they were projecting.
We'll have better numbers this year, Kathy. We did number all the permits, and they are keeping track of them, so we'll have a better number, how many people actually bought permits this year, as we go through the budget process. So we'll have that number.
Chuck, you might not know this, but maybe to Jack's point, is there an assumption built in that some people are gonna sit down, crunch the numbers, do a calculation, and say, well, if the town is gonna start charging me to throw, I've calculated how much I think I'm gonna spend this year doing that, I might as well just use this on a private hauler and not drive down to the transfer station. Is that an assumption that's also built in how it would reduce?
I mean, that could happen, you know, I don't.
But you don't
I
know
mean,
if that's built into what they assume.
I think they're throwing around stuff in a big, I mean, we could get, I mean, we've talked a lot to Richard Coates, who's in Woodbury and who did this over in Woodbury, and we could try to get him to come maybe talk to us about the Woodbury experience, but I think this stuff is just, again, high-level projections based on, I wouldn't, I don't,
This is,
I don't put much faith
Oh,
in it.
no, I don't
put
think
much
these will be
faith in it.
accurate, yeah, but
But
they're
so-
that's
and
what's
so-
been presented,
and-
so we don't have anything else to discuss than what's in front of us.
Right, I get it, but why discuss it, I guess, anymore? My thinking is.
It's a
is-
projection.
Because we might be asking people to pay a significant more amount of
Well,
money, so it might
I mean, I guess all,
merit
all we're,
discussion.
but I think all we're asking tonight is for the 17,000 to try to get answers to that, to see if we want to go to the next phase.
Can
Mr. Chair, could,
Can we
could
go
I, could I make a motion?
Do we want to see the rest of the slides?
Or,
I think there's a, yeah, go, there's an,
Oh,
oh,
there it
can
goes
you go to
back.
the next slide? Yeah, that is, oh, this appendix, but I think we have Richard Coates, so they, this is his quote from Woodbury, that covers the disposal of MSW was reduced by 68,000 over the current year budget. I think that was the only line item that showed a reduction. So that's an anecdote, but
is that the end of the presentation?
there's appendix material, but I wasn't really planning to go through any of that. It's more detail on how the first phase would be broken out. And then the 17,000 design, stakeholder engagement and outreach. But,
I mean, half the game, and that's why I don't think 3 to 4 months is sufficient. Half the game in the beginning is to try to get feedback. I mean, to try to just really see if we could get feedback from a wider population about
During the holiday season.
it. Yeah.
What
Well,
what they've said to us is it's typically 3 to 5 months. And they use that word, typically. So I think there's some flexibility there.
Okay.
Could I make a motion
Go ahead.
to approve the phase one? Is that the appropriate motion to approve just phase one?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we would approve the grant,
Acceptance of the grant.
And
and then, we just have these toll gates at the end of each one.
we can
so-
say no at each point.
Okay. Motion to accept the grant.
Have a second?
I guess just one question under discussion then.
Could we have discussion after we deal with the
I don't
motion?
know, half the times during these meetings, I'm not sure
Okay.
which Robert's
All right, do I
rules
have
we're
a second?
following,
And
so-
then we have a second, then we can have a discussion. You got a
Second.
Okay. Go ahead.
You had said they said typically 3 to 5 months, they use almost they worded it almost like open-ended. Is it not, do they not have a hard timeline? If we accept this, could we drag our feet 6 months setting up phase one? Or are they gonna come back and tell us, no, listen, it's 5 months, that's it?
It's my expectation that we could stretch it out if we wanted to. But I don't have a definitive answer on that today.
I mean, well, that's fine, all right.
I mean,
just phase one, I guess.
well,
And there are no strings.
well, I mean, they can't take the 17,000 back from us, right? If I tell Dan to go and sit in his office and throw trash and take the 17 grand, I mean,
Well, the 17 is going to pay other consultants.
well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I think we have some direction of the 17, don't we?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure.
So, yeah, hopefully it's used for that, and hopefully that's how we use it, right? But I don't see the downside of taking the 17,000, but if anybody else does, tell me. Okay, so all in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, we're done with that. Thanks, Chuck. Hey, while you're here, why don't you give the update on the Energy Task Force, so I don't have to do it?
Chuck, just one thing on this particular subject. My understanding from talking to a couple of the trash collectors and so forth is that a lot of what goes in our town into single-stream recycling, when it gets to the recycling processing center, is not acceptable. I think somebody should, and since I've been here when we recycled, I've never seen anything from the town go out to people to say what should and what should not be put in the single stream recycling. Now, whether they will follow that, I don't know.
You know,
It's come back to me from a good number of people and from someone who I know who for 2 days tried to get a job or worked in one of those single stream things, and he just couldn't put up with the, with the job. But they were taking a lot of what comes through and putting it aside.
Yeah, I've visited the recycling facilities, and it is true. And by the way, we're paying somebody today to stand by those dumpsters and pick out things out of those dumpsters. So, if we do this right, that's one thing we could possibly reduce as a line item in the budget. But I hear you. We've been wanting to Sustainable Southbury's been wanting to help and put signage up at the transfer station for a long time, but we haven't gotten anywhere with it.
Like a town-wide email or something in the first selectman's comments and
Yep.
on the internet and so forth and so on that are sent out to anybody. I think that might at least open some eyes. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I think we all have to ask ourselves, take the calendar test on this. Do we care about this issue? Then show it with your actions and your feet, right? And it goes from all the town officials right down into nonprofits like ours, right?
And ultimately, the residents.
And the residents, sure. But, if we're going to affect change, we're going to have to give it that kind of effort.
Okay. Do you want to give a quick update on since you're here, on the solar? The solar project is moving forward, and I think it doesn't need any more approvals. I think everybody's approved it. So when if I get to the ETF thing, but I don't know that, if you have any quick questions about that, fine. So we won in the auction, so we're moving forward, okay?
Yeah, there's a timeline of activities out. The first phase of acceptance of that award has been executed by the first selectman. So we're set on that. And then the next phase is to start doing the interconnection study with Eversource, and to also get deep involved in the permitting landfill closing process. You have to get a permit from them to put solar on a capped landfill. So that's the primary activity. As part of that, we discovered there's no as-built drawing for the landfill. It was never submitted to DEEP. So they'll close that liability for the town as part of that process. And we won't have that hanging over our heads anymore. And then we have a period of negotiation on the ultimate lease agreement. And they're suggesting we start on that process soon, because it can be a lengthy negotiation. It's a simple land lease, so it should be an interesting period with us. But so those are the primary three activities coming up. There's a fourth one, which I'm blanking on at the moment. But
Okay. All right, so that's the Energy Task Force update.
Oh.
So
I'm glad I could check
that's
off
down on
two
the
for
bottom.
you.
That's on the bottom somewhere.
Oh,
You just saved a problem from it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Chuck.
Sure.
Okay, let's get on to the bus grant.
So last grant tonight, I promise, is the 5310 bus grant. The town of Southbury was awarded another 5310 grant, which gives us
It was in the hand. There it is. Yeah.
it gives us a fifth bus, where currently we have 4. This gives us a new bus. It looks like it's an 80-20 program. Last time we were involved, we got a $117,000 bus for $700 total. But this looks like it's 80-20, so at the same, $100,000 bus would cost us $20,000.
Okay.
It's the senior transport bus, the wheelchair access lift.
Do we need a fifth bus?
I asked Andrea, and I think Andrea was out today, but we could use it because some of our buses are aging. So we have 4. We'd probably drop one off and sell it. So then we'd have 3 fairly new ones. We also have an SUV to provide one-off transportation.
So this
and-
is an 80% discount on a replacement bus.
On a replacement bus, yes.
Well, also, I think that would free up some of what we've got in the reserves for.
Yeah, we actually reserve, in our vehicle replacement plan, we reserve buying new buses, because we were changing the strategy many years ago, and then we decided to go back to applying for the grant, because the money was there and available to us.
So, the only thing about this is that if it's like the last ones, they don't allow the state bought buses to go out of state.
Yeah, these
So
particular
we've got
buses.
certain
are not allowed
buses
to-
that are designated in-state buses and ones that are designated out-of-state buses.
Yeah,
And we still have some out-of-state buses.
Out of the 5, this one, we only have 1 now out of the 4 that can't go out of state.
Mhm.
This would be the 5th, so we'd have 2. So 3 can go out of state.
Right, so we still have enough to go out of state if I think, okay.
And in
Okay.
reality, if we do large
So-
out-of-state trips, then we would charter a bus.
So do we need a motion to approve this grant?
You need a motion to approve acceptance.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve acceptance, anyone? Second, anyone?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Let's go. What's next? Hey, let's go.
Next is.
Me, yeah.
Oh, okay, go
Just-
ahead.
Just to refresh everyone's memory back, budget time, we had put $20,000 into this fiscal year budget in order to do benchmarking of our costs, processes, methods, and procedures with other, benchmarking against other towns, looking for best practices that we may not be following. We then got into the summer, we got into the early fall, and we haven't really had any conversation about that. It's my feeling that the $20,000 is in the budget, but independent of that, we really don't have a basis for for judging a lot of the decisions we make relative to other towns, or relative to what I might call best practices. And I'm not sure whether other towns is best practices or isn't, but at least it's good data for comparative purposes to help us make smart decisions.
Well, I agree. The thing, it seems a little bit too abstract for me to think that 20,000, if we stay in abstract land and spend 20,000, we're not gonna get much of value, I don't think. And so, to me, it sort of needs to be more focused a little bit, about what practices are we talking about? Budgeting,
That was not clearly and specifically defined, I don't think, at the time we set the budget. And I'm not proposing anything specific tonight. My feeling is that we would recommend to the first selectman that he form a committee. And the first step of that committee would be to put together the detailed scope of work. And the committee ought to be comprised of selectmen, of finance board members, of the director of finance, maybe somebody else within the town, I'm not sure.
so Dan, do you know any history on this?
Yeah, so when we looked at this last year, I believe they put in 25,000 for a benchmarking consultant, and it was to kind of look at all the departments as a needs basis of what we need, and are we doing it right? Do we have enough staff? Do we have too much staff? Considering that almost 68% of our cost is in personnel. So that was one thing we wanted to look at. So the way we would do it is, or this board would do it, is they would make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to form this task force. And I would recommend a task force, not a committee, just based upon,
Okay, so
similar to the police.
the focus is staffing.
It's probably
that's
staffing
68% of our
benefits, and,
costs.
yeah.
Well, okay, so, fine, okay. But I mean, I can think of I can think of about 10 other things that could be out there, but okay. So the focus was a committee about staffing, is that correct?
Basically, staffing and the needs of what this town needs as we move forward.
Okay,
Technology has changed a lot of what the needs have been in the past, so.
okay. All right, so do I have a motion to, I guess the motion would be a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen from the Board of Finance to form a committee to.
A task force.
A task force to investigate staffing relative to other comparable towns. Is that the idea?
Yeah, basically.
Do we want to limit it to staffing? I mean, that was part of the discussion.
There's a whole other things that we could put in there, Tom, so I wouldn't just limit it to staffing. We could do.
Well, but that's what bothers me, is that if it's so abstract, 25, if you really want the full thing, well, we can put 250,000 in and we'll find out. But, you know, for 25,000, if you're not focused, you're not gonna get much, right? So I'd rather figure out what we're focused on, right?
Got to put some reliance on the committee or the task force. They're limited by the budget.
Okay, so
Can I-
is it budgeting, or is it sort of towards budgeting and saving money? Is it towards, what's the point?
I don't think it's geared toward necessarily saving money. It could be something, but it could be actually increasing the budget, because it could be determination that we're understaffed in certain areas.
Okay, well, that's why I'm saying
Can I ask a
staffing.
question?
Yeah.
Like, normally when we make a change, like when we had the police, we went to the different towns to, this is way too loud. We went to the different towns that were similar to our sizes, and we asked them then. So I kind of agree with Tom, this seems pretty nebulous, that we just want $25,000 to make improvements. I would like to see it
But
focused.
Kathy, if you remember, and Jack was chair of the committee, I was on the task force also, we didn't just go to those other towns. We set up a task force prior to going to those towns. And then we broke into different groups, and not only did we go to the towns, we went to the Police Chiefs Association. And we went to a lot of other areas in research, so it wasn't just us picking up the phone and calling the other towns. The task force had, actually did a lot of legwork in terms of that.
No, I'm
so-
not, that's not my point. My point was, it was based on the police study. It wasn't just based on, improving everything all at once.
No,
So
but
we
I
kind of
th-
already do that, don't we? When
No,
we-
I think this would be a tool as we go into budgeting though, because last year, everyone knows how we went through the budget process and the cuts that the Board of Finance made at the end of the budget process. This would alleviate that and give the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance a tool to say, what are the needs of this town? And where are we gonna look at, as far as personnel or benefits or anything along those lines? Because it is the largest portion of our budget.
Okay, but again, if it's about staffing and personnel, that's fine. If it's kind of needs of our town, that's, God
No,
knows
but
what that
if
is.
you think about
That's
the,
like a big dartboard with lots
but
of
needs
crap
in,
out there.
needs in terms of personnel, Tom, is basically what we would be looking at.
Okay,
Okay, that makes sense.
all right, so then we reframe it in terms of, so, late in the night, okay.
I
It's-
believe we've done it once before when First Selectman Edelson was here, they did it. They did a whole needs assessment. And I don't think that went anywhere because I think there was a change in administration at that time. So I think it's probably is a good thing every few years to do it anyway in any organization.
So rather than staffing, we say a personnel needs assessment, is that what we say? Okay. So,
And benefits connected with the personnel,
well, okay.
because that's the 68%
Sure,
comp and benefits.
Okay, fine. So, so there's so the motion is a recommendation from the Board of Finance to the Board of Selectmen to form a task force to investigate personnel and staffing issues. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, sounds right.
Okay, do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, all right, done. First selectmen's, well, the existing first selectman's not here, and
Yeah.
nothing to say much. Finance director's report, this is, as John always says, it's kind of a consent agenda? Or
Yeah,
anything to
I
say?
thought I could go over hauling for the last 25 years in the town of Southbury, if that's okay with everyone else. Given we had all all of the other things on the agenda tonight. I didn't put anything on for the finance director's report other than the financial statements, which if you look at it, we're trending well ahead of prior years at this point. So we're in really good shape.
Okay. And there's nothing you've noticed? I can always ask you, did this?
No, there's really nothing. All of our permitting numbers are up. We're getting more money on ECS. We were aggressive when we budgeted the income on our short-term portfolio. We had estimated that the feds were going to make rate cuts, so we're well ahead of that. We had that already built into our budget. Our expenditures are up, but primarily up because of the refund we had given to IBM, which you'll see a transfer tonight of $857,000. So that's the bulk of our increases this year, other than basic personnel costs of,
But as we talked before this, we basically budgeted for that.
we budgeted for that, yes.
That's all right, okay. Okay, well, let's get to that then, transfers.
So we have a transfer. This is, we had an out-of-court settlement with IBM. As everyone's aware, the assessment from the town's assessment to what was actually the property was assessed, that was reduced by $35 million. And this is the tax refund for that assessment.
Why is the date?
857 is the actual tax portion.
No, the date. Up top, May 13th, 2019.
Oh, sorry, wrong date. I changed that. Sorry. Good catch, Steve.
So you want to adjust that before yeah, okay.
Just make a note, yeah.
Okay, so we have to approve the transfer though,
Yeah,
obviously.
this has to go to the Board of Selectmen after you guys approve it.
So do I have a motion to approve and send to the Board of Selectmen?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. What's next?
Liaisons.
Okay, we had an IPOC meeting last week. I think as we talked about, as I talked about, but never heard when I was in London, when in England, but it was in the transcript. We changed we modified the allocation a bit to the reserve fund in line with, with fiducian's suggestions in terms of how to respond to, the rates going down. That was the main discussion point. Year to date, well, at the end of September, so the pension fund is up 5.5% for this fiscal year. The reserve fund's up 2.3%, and the gift fund's up 5.5%. That was the end of September. Maybe a little bit higher now, but I guess we'll see. But so.
End of October. End of October.
See how things.
End of
progress.
October, Tom. It's at 5% also, so it's pretty flat in October.
Yeah, so it's pretty flat. That was it for IPOC. Janet's not here, right? Insurance working group, has not met. Jack, Roads and Bridges?
It hasn't met. It's really a non-existent committee at this point due to deaths of a number of former members of the committee. I'm going to sit down with Blake and discuss the need and what path we move forward. Whether we reform the committee with new members or there's one train of thought that says maybe the committee has outlived its usefulness in its former form, and we ought to do it a different way. I'll come back to the Board of Finance, hopefully in December, with the results of that discussion and the direction that we think we want to go.
Okay.
I wasn't around when that committee was formed, so I'm not exactly sure whether that
Well,
goes to the
it
first selectman or it stands within the Board of Finance.
Well, it used to be mostly Dick Hill riding on the back of the trucks and making sure that they did what they said they did. So
I will say
if you want to do that.
that the large projects that were undertaken this year
Mhm.
have been on track.
Well-
Are either complete or soon to be completed.
Well, I do like the idea of somebody watching that.
Yeah, and the question is it a task force or is it perhaps a person or a couple of people?
Right. So, yeah, well, I'll be interested to hear what you guys had suggest, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. RUPAC, John's not on, right? And you got Energy Task Force already. Okay, anything else? Okay, do I need a motion to adjourn? Have you, what's the Roberts rules on that anymore?
Or you don't need one.
We skipped past, did we skip past anything?
No, we didn't. I
Oh,
think we got it.
internal audit.
Well, next, in December, we're gonna have our internal audit report. It's complete, and we'll present it in December. Our two things, our audit partner at CLA retired, and our audit partner at CLA for our internal audit both retired. So we're gonna have new partners, next year on our audit job.
Are you happy with them? Have you?
Yeah, no, I think they do a really good job. You know, the internal audit, I might suggest next year we go out to RFP for a new firm. But that would be, next year, next fiscal year.
All right, any other business? All right,
Kathy's gonna leave us?
oh, yeah. Au revoir.
I'm just moving over.
Yeah. She came
Gonna
through,
become one of them instead of one of us?
she came through,
I'm your key.
yeah. She's our
The
new.
bridge.
She's our new secret liaison.
Ah,
So, well, yeah, thank you, Kathy.
We'll
for your
miss you.
service.
Instead of one meeting a month, now you have two,
or 3 or 4.
or 3 or 4, yeah.
I'll see you all in February and March.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you for leading the meeting.
Yeah.